Lesson 6. The immense wisdom and providence of the body. 6.1. What constitutes body wisdom and providence? 6.2. Cell and brain programming. 6.3. Knowledge, expertise, and resources for healing processes. 6.4. Programming the intellect for exuberant well-being. 6.1. What constitutes body wisdom and providence? Introduction. 6.1.1. Cell wisdom and providence. 6.1.2. Multicellular intelligence and intercellular relationships. 6.1.3. Ascertaining the intelligence of physical phenomena. 6.1.4. The brain as the kingpin behind the human show. Introduction. The human body is possessed of an intelligence and order that is incomprehensible to our intellects. While many humans are vain and will not admit to an inability to know and understand, let's face it, we are all finite in our capabilities. We cannot comprehend the concept of infinity, and we are mystified by many realities of existence. From miseducation, ignorance, vanity, and authoritarianism among our professionals flow ignorance and incorrect action that brutalizes those whom they profess to serve. From intellectual wisdom and understanding flow humility, kindness, and other humane virtues. Wisdom recognizes our finite nature and admits to ignorance, an act of humility. Humility does not stifle the innate drive to seek knowledge. Rather, humility is born of a realization that spurs the quest for greater wisdom. True wisdom motivates us to continual exploration and improvement. This lesson treats an area largely unexplored and uncharted. When we view the vastness of the incredible multitude of faculties possessed by the human body, we must stand in awe of the enormous intelligence displayed in each of the quadrillions of processes conducted within the body daily. We must stand in wonderment at the precision we observe. We cannot help but conclude that the body operates on principles that manifest the reign of law and order within the organic realm. We must observe that we are constituted on such an order as to comply in every act with the universal laws of existence. We want to charge you with an overwhelming realization of the enormity of innate intelligence, of inherent body wisdom that exceeds by thousands of times the intellectual powers we arrogantly boast of. So vast is this innate intelligence that it is positively staggering. The immensity of inborn intelligence is not an easy subject to present. Very few studies touch upon this subject. However, we can delineate and point out some of the many manifestations of inherent body wisdom. In this lesson, you will become aware of the internal providence that should be respected. So great are our body endowments that you should adopt this attitude. Never interfere with the vital domain. You cannot possibly help it. You can only harm it. All the knowledge and wisdom of civilization to date does not equal the intelligence exhibited by the operations of a single cell within the body. The best you can do is to order the external environment to make it more favorable for the organism. The only thing you can do for the body is to leave it intelligently alone. It knows what it is doing. You don't. 6.1. What constitutes body wisdom and providence? Providence is the ability to anticipate needs and provide for them. This providence may be instinctual, as in the case of the bear that stores tremendous amounts of fat in preparation for hibernation, or the squirrel that stashes nuts, acorns, and seeds, or it may be due to acquired wisdom, as in the case of humans who store food during plenitude in preparation for the season of scarcity. The body is always provident. All providence exhibits wisdom. Reproduction of kind is providence. It is providence that the species shall survive. The complexities of reproductive provisions defy human inquiry and intellect in their profundity and detail. Nutrition and alimentation are provisions ensuring that the organism survives. Likewise, the complexities and subtleties of these many provisions defy human inquiry and intellect, though compliance is easily accomplished. The immensity of the wisdom exhibited in all things so staggers the human intellect that many often retreat into the comfort of some all-encompassing outlook that relieves them of the burden of inquiry, assessment, and understanding. As students of this course, you are undertaking to delve into life's provisions sufficiently to ascertain a valid course of uplifting yourself and fellow beings to the uttermost possibilities. Wisdom is really a difficult word to assess and define. It can be said to be all-knowing and all-understanding within a given sphere. Wisdom is at once the comprehension of a matter in both depth and breadth, and an expertise or mastery that enables the possessor to pursue a correct course of action. In pursuing this study, we must not confuse inherent wisdom or intelligence with intellect and acquired wisdom. The ability to think is a property of the conscious intellect. It involves wisdom and intellect of a different order than the wisdom which is the subject of this lesson. While there are books on body wisdom and its inherent programming, these books have little substance. This sphere of our existence is little explored, though the mechanisms of inherent wisdom have been charted extensively. What we can do here is to, by observation and deduction, invoke your realization of the colossal wisdom of the body. Body wisdom comprises the multitude of faculties within the body that recognize, communicate, and effectively respond. For example, if you bite into a luscious apple, the whole system is coursed with delight. If you bite into an apple that has been injected with a solution of caustic soda, you'll immediately recognize the danger, begin spitting and sputtering, and run for water to dilute and remove the deadly poison that contacted your mouth tissues. Rejection of toxic matters is just as natural as delighting in beneficial material and influences. 6.1.1 Cell Wisdom and Providence. The wisdom of a single cell is said to exceed all the accumulated knowledge of the human race so far. Each cell is, quite literally, a city in itself. It is a self-contained organism. The membrane is like the wall around a great city. Within are numerous inhabitants, many of them enjoying an existence within the cell on the order as the cell enjoys within the body. These forms of life, called mitochondria, have independent metabolic systems and can thusly be said to operate symbiotically with the cell and in concert with each other. All the components of the cell act for their mutual welfare and for the welfare of the cell as the host organism. If we marvel at the extensiveness and complexity of the cell, then we must be even more astonished with the human body. The human body is said to possess 125 trillion cells, give or take a few trillion. Some texts say there are 75 trillion, and others say there are as many as 300 trillion cells in the human body. To say that the cell is a self-contained city in itself is no exaggeration. Cells vary in size from midgets to giants, but even the smallest cell is about 1 billion times the size of the smallest component. There are thousands of organelles within each cell. These are the cell's life support system. Among these organelles are mitochondria, which appear to be an independent form of life within the cellular context. Mitochondria are analogous to or like bacteria in their organization and functions. A cell seems to be a city of specialized bacteria united into an organic unit to maintain a favorable environment and to more effectively secure the needs of existence. Additional to its mitochondria, a cell has many organelles, functioning systems within their own membranes, that complement the mitochondria in making the cellular organism self-sufficient in its operations. Thus, the cell, like the human body, requires only that it needs be supplied within the context of a favorable environment. Just as humans strive to create favorable environments for themselves, cells have long since ordered their environment by organizing into a supercity known as a body. The human body can be said to be the supercity. The wisdom manifested by its faculties, organization, and operations of a single cell stun the intellect. By observation, we must admit that it is there and regard it with respect, even if we do not know or understand it. 6.1.2 Multicellular Intelligence and Intercellular Relationships. If wisdom characterizes the seemingly infinite faculties of the cell, then think of the wisdom that unites 100 trillion of them into an organism. Think how great must be the wisdom that guides the destiny of each and every cell within the body complex. Cells are organisms within themselves. They contain mitochondria, which have the characteristics that would earn them the ascription of an organism too. Thus, if the human body contained over 100 trillion cells, and each cell contains a complement of mitochondria, then there must, in reality, be several quadrillion organisms within the human body. If a cell is a colony of sophisticated bacteria that have banded together for their mutual welfare, then the body must be said to be made up of sophisticated cells that are banded together for their mutual welfare. Cells have allied themselves within a unit we call an organism to specialize in functions in complementary coordination for mutual good. If we hypothesize that bacteria have confederated and specialized in carrying on the functions that make the cell a self-contained functioning organism, then cells have likewise affiliated and specialized to better create an ideal environment and to secure the needs of life. If we observe the life cycle of a tree, we must marvel at its tremendous intelligence. From an acorn that sprouts and slowly grows over the years into a stately oak, we see the unfolding of an intelligence that is beyond our knowledge and understanding. Within the genetic encoding of each and every cell of the acorn and the resulting tree is the knowledge, understanding, and operational expertise to secure needs from the environment, to fashion them precisely into its specific requirements, to utilize them and to eliminate the wastes. In making alliances with other cells, a supracell coordinator is created to coordinate the activities of the cell. This is called the nervous system or brain in multicellular organisms. 6.1.3 Ascertaining the intelligence of physical phenomena. What kind of intelligence does it require for the body to recognize food and to secrete the correct enzymes for its digestion? What kind of intelligence is required to create the enzymes? When we start asking questions exhaustively, we begin to discover the immeasurable wisdom and providence of every faculty of life. Below is an excerpt from the physiology text. It is quoted merely to highlight certain body processes so that we might divine some of the body faculties and the intelligence they exhibit. Often, tissues of the body regress into much smaller size than previously. For instance, this occurs in the uterus following pregnancy, in muscles during long periods of inactivity, and in mammary glands at the end of the period of lactation. Lysosomes are probably responsible for much, if not most, of this regression, for one can show that the lysosomes become very active at this time. However, the mechanism by which the lack of activity in a tissue causes the lysosomes to increase their activity is completely unknown. Another very special role of the lysosomes is the removal of damaged cells or damaged portions of cells from tissues. Cells damaged by heat, cold, trauma, chemicals, or any other factor. Damage to the cell causes lysosomes to rupture, and the released hydrolases begin immediately to digest the surrounding organic substances. If the damage is slight, only a portion of the cell will be removed, followed by repair of the cell. However, if the damage is severe, the entire cell will be digested, a process called autolysis. In this way, the cell is completely removed, and a new cell of the same type, ordinarily, is formed by meiotic reproduction of an adjacent cell to take the place of the old one. What this really means is that body parts not in service atrophy, and that it is believed that lysosomes are responsible for regression or atrophy. But whether or not we divine the wisdom of loss of unused faculties, there is an intelligence that creates and regresses faculties involved in pregnancy, lactation, and musculature. In the paragraph that follows, we will study one way in which the body uses lysosomes for special purposes. As you may already know, lysosomes are powerful digestive enzymes the body creates, stores, and uses. When a cell is to be scrapped, the old cell is autolyzed, self-digested, and the remnants are passed off as wastes into the lymph and then into the bloodstream. The waste may be recycled in part and excreted in part. The point here is that cells have their own self-destruct mechanisms in the form of lysosomes. The processes described evince tremendous body intelligence in their performance. The vital domain does not tolerate unneeded baggage. Therefore, it disposes of the useless and the surplus to the extent it can. Cells that are crippled are either repaired or replaced. High-level function is the objective of the body. The welfare of the remaining cells decrees that they dispatch crippled cells if not repairable. The body secretes lysosomes and uses them for special purposes. Let's examine a boil or carbuncle. The little hole that extends from the body's surface to the fleshy interior represents a real body disaster, but the purpose served decree the ravage that the body inflicts upon itself. When there is deadly toxic accumulation that threatens the integrity of the organism, when the toxic accumulation cannot otherwise be eliminated through regular channels of elimination, the body autolyzes, a tube, hole, passage, duct, or fistula-like opening to the surface. Perhaps 100 million or so body cells will be destroyed by lysosomes. After the completion of the tube, the body collects the toxic material and forces it to the surface through the specially created duct. There, it is quarantined until drained or detoxified. In fasting, for instance, lysosomes are utilized in destroying and digesting growths. The materials destroyed are utilized as food. These growths may be breast tumors, cancer cells, warts, cysts, etc. The order of intelligence involved in sensing errant conditions, communicating them to the brain, assessing the reports, determining a course of action, and responding with coordinated orders to all the body cells and systems involved to affect a result is beyond human comprehension. We can only intimate the vastness of the wisdom involved with our limited concepts and expressions. This is just one of the many kinds of body wisdom that further fortifies the life sciences structure. Leave the body intelligently alone. 6.1.4 The brain as the kingpin behind the human show. For us to comprehend the magnitude of the brain's dominion and the cooperation of each cell member of that dominion, we'd have to have an intellect infinitely more developed than it presently is. The limits of intellect leave too much that is not clearly understood. In one of the articles used as text material in this lesson, it is pointed out that the body possesses some 125 trillion cells. Each cell consists of a multitude of organelles or life support systems that keep the cell functioning. This article points out that it is difficult for us to conceive a few thousand people getting together and cooperating harmoniously in all things. If that seems difficult, then imagine all the 4 billion individuals on Earth acting in unison. But then, compared with the body, that is nothing. Can you imagine 36,000 Earths, each with 4 billion inhabitants, acting in unison? Only with such staggering thoughts as these is it possible to grasp some idea how infinite is the knowledge, understanding, and expertise of the human brain. It coordinates the activities of an astronomical number of cooperating cells. We emphasize the word cooperating because all cells are completely subservient to the brain, which in turn serves the whole organism. The brain exists as the controller of the body cells collectively. It serves the cells by providing them with needs they cannot obtain on their own. Sometimes a cell may become independent in that its control mechanisms are affected and it either no longer possesses innate intelligence or can no longer focus its innate intelligence to cooperative endeavors. Such a cell becomes a parasite cell in that it draws from organic stores but is so crazy it cannot contribute to function. It is called a cancer cell. Its operations disrupt physiological harmony rather than contribute to it. A cancer cell is created by continual assault by toxic substances that eventually derange and destroy its encoded blueprints and intelligence. When such a cell exists, the brain will bring the residual powers of the organism to destroy the errant cell. The brain, though the creature of its cellular constituents, is nevertheless supreme in the organism of which it is a part. The cells have created it as president to preside over and direct their affairs. As the supreme faculty of the body, the brain is protected and served by its cell constituency preferentially. The brain thus is treated royally. It receives the best of everything. It is served and kept operational, even if this means the sacrifice of millions upon millions of cells. Thus, we can say the brain is the kingpin behind the human show. 6.2 Cell and Brain Programming. 6.2.1 Wisdom and Precision of Body Processes. 6.2.2 Cognitive Faculties. 6.2.3 The Body Communication System. 6.2.4 The Body's Master Coordinator. Each cell has a blueprint called genetic encoding. As a matter of fact, each mitochondrion within the cell has its own genetic material too. This encoding enables the cell to reproduce itself faithfully. Further, it enables the cell to perform chemically, mechanically, and electrical activities with exactness. The cell is a chemical factory performing more chemical feats than all the chemical factories in the world combined. Incredibly, It performs them within its membranous confines, the volume of which is so small as to be undetectable to our eyesight. The intelligence of a cell does not have to be learned. A new cell comes into existence just as experienced and knowledgeable as the cell that begot it. The intelligence is inherent and is automatically transmitted to progeny. The endless duplication of phonodiscs may be compared with cell replication. The programming is within. The brain and central nervous system, likewise, are possessed of most of the knowledge, programming, and expertise needed for operating an infinitely complex organism. The programming necessary to internal operations is automatically transmitted through reproduction of genetic codes in the developing organism. We marvel that the blueprint for the whole organism, in all its incomprehensible number of faculties and functions, exists within a fertilized ovum. Our stupefaction must be thorough when we realize that the microscopic fertilized ovum has all the instructions encoded that will create a grown human being with 125 trillion cells, a perfectly developed and symmetrically formed organism of 125 trillion cells will result from the blueprint born of the union of sperm and ovum. Everything about this organism is at all times perfect in faculties and functioning potential. It is faithful in every detail of the blueprint. It carries within all the accumulated experience and knowledge of billions of years of development. It will reliably produce a human being to the highest standard to which humans have developed. The perfect precision with which millions and trillions of formulas, processes, and procedures are exactly transmitted and performed, for some just once in the whole life of the forming organism, is truly mind-boggling. All this presumes no vitiating interference from toxicity or injury. We can throw up our hands and dismiss probing into such baffling complexities because of their irrelevance to the practical plans of human existence. Indeed, we can. We can live in bliss and never inquire once into the origins of the intricacies of our being. Humans lived happily, unaffected lives in nature, just as animals, long before we plumbed the depths of our bodies and minds. Hence, we do not pursue this course to teach the profundities of the organism. You can produce books on physiology, biochemistry, cytology, anatomy, and kindred subjects if you choose to do so, but that will add little to your effective knowledge of how to guide errant humans. That know-how is much simpler and easier, at least insofar as it involves learning. Our objective is to imbue you with an awareness of the effectiveness of inborn intelligence and an understanding that it is to be trusted implicitly at all times and in all cases. Never be so presumptive or arrogant as to imagine that you can second-guess the body. Neither you nor anyone else can. While we can fathom the vast intelligence within, we cannot begin to substitute for it. We cannot help it a smidgen. All that we do to the vital domain constitutes morbid interference. The brain consists of 50 billion cells that are the most highly developed of any known. They have the potential to live for hundreds of years. They do not reproduce as do other body cells. They do not reproduce at all. But even the healthiest of us lose perhaps 100,000 of our brain cells daily. At this rate, it would take 150 years to lose 10% of our brain capacity. But humans often squander this precious heritage and become senile in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, still in the relative youth of life's potential. with loss of perhaps more than 50% of their cerebral matter. On the conscious level, we are babes in the woods. While our intellects have been millions of years in developing, cell intelligence has been developing for billions of years, and our subconscious faculties have been hundreds of millions of years in development. Our infant intellect are at a stage where it can most appropriately be said that a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. If the human race survives long enough, we may come to a general intellectual level consonant with life science ideals. We may all come to realize that our own well-being is indelibly bound in following nature's mandates, in living in complete harmony with our fellow sojourners, in total non-exploitation of humans or of other creatures. 6.2.1 Wisdom and Precision of Body Processes. Some 100,000 different proteins are synthesized within the body. The blueprint or formulas for these proteins exist within almost every cell. The exact procedure involved for making these proteins most efficiently are a part of cell encoding or programming. Likewise, the cells have a wealth of abilities to store and use all the raw material they need, to create the compounds they need and will need, to create the energy they need, to create and apply the energy commanded of them in behalf of the organism. The multitude of the capabilities of the cell overwhelm the intellect. It is said that if all the processes and capabilities of the cell were to be taken over by a computer of the dimensions of New York City would not cope with them. A cell might better be likened to a self-contained universe rather than a self-contained city. Adenosine triphosphate, ATP, is the source of energy for most cell functions. Most ATP is created by the specialized organelles called mitochondria. Mitochondria create this complicated molecule, ATP, which fires when given a proper signal. When the ATP is used, the resultant spent molecule is recycled or reloaded for reuse. The know-how, providence, and expertise involved in these chemical processes staggers the imagination. 6.2.2 Cognitive faculties. At every level of its being, the body has highly developed senses that can readily recognize that which is good, bad, or indifferent. All our senses coalesce to recognize foods, dangers, pleasurable and enticing situations, unpleasurable and repulsive situations, and so on. Externally, our conscious faculties and intellect fulfill sensory and cognitive roles. Within the vital domain, there are millions upon millions of specialized faculties for sensing the electrochemical mechanical nature of everything that enters. Nerves translate all sensory data into electrical impulses and transmit them to the brain for a coordinated and purposive response that will effectively deal with the situation. To provide an example, let us propose that many cells are short of an amino acid needed to synthesize a crucial protein requirement. This need is communicated to the brain, which relays a message to cells for inventories of surplus amino acids. Those required for deamination and reamination into the needed amino acids are directed to the liver, where deamination is conducted and the new amino acid is synthesized. The order of intelligence that can perform these immensely complex inventory and chemical activities makes our intellects, as marvelous as they are, look rather minuscule by comparison. 6.2.3 The Body Communication System. The body has some 50 million brain cells. It has billions of nerve cells involved in message transmission. Messages travel within and around the body with the speed of electricity. Nerve transmissions are almost all electrical. There are chemical communications within the body as well. If we viewed a city like New York with 8 million inhabitants, millions of telephones, hundreds of exchanges, and thousands of switchboards, we can only begin to understand how intricate and complex are the body communication systems. The body has a communication system that serves at one time the equivalent of 36,000 Earths, each Earth having over 4 billion residents. Each of those inhabitants has a telephone. If we knew what was involved in turning over during the night, during sleep, you'd be astonished. An area of the body involving countless billions of cells becomes cramped or distressed in some way. An urgent request goes to the brain. Rather, the brain has been monitoring the situation all along. But movement is not initiated as long as matters remain within certain parameters. When the situation threatens the integrity of certain areas, the brain, entirely beneath the level of wakefulness, will mobilize trillions of cells that comprise hundreds of muscle systems and effect a shift of body weight to a more comfortable position. 6.2.4 The body's master coordinator. We have commented upon the brain as the kingpin in all body operations. The brain is the supreme creation that trillions of cooperating cells have devised to serve them as a master communications and coordination center. The brain has been developed to administer the many needs within. As well, the brain has been developed to aid the organism to deal with the external world on its own terms. The thoughts we have, on a conscious level, are marvels when viewed from one aspect. But our intellects are hardly capable of conducting more than one line of thought at a time. In comparison, the brain conducts millions of processes simultaneously beneath the level of awareness. This service never ceases, going on every second of our entire lifetime. The busyness of the brain in serving the equivalent of 36,000 Earths, with 4 billion inhabitants each, is unimaginable. We can only hint at it. For example, one of the brain's responsibilities is overseeing the maintenance and circulation of the blood, among a few million other things. And speaking of a few million things, while you read this sentence, your body has created 10 million new blood cells. That is, it creates 10 million blood cells per second. The body has some 25 trillion blood cells, and their average life expectancy is only about 30 days. Blood maintenance and circulation have unimaginable intelligence behind them. The luxury of abstract thought is possessed by only a few creatures on Earth. Some races of humans, notably the Negrillo or Pygmy, are said to be incapable of mastering abstractions. Yet there are other creatures, most notably whales, dolphins, porpoises, and elephants, who may be able to think in abstractions. Perhaps even dogs and wolves are capable of abstract thought. We don't really know much about the subject. Certainly no other creatures approach the capacities of humans for abstract thought. The brain is absolute master of all the cells within its domain, yet it is totally subservient to the cells and is very responsive to their needs. But the organic order of the body system is such that the brain is at the very apex of importance. While the brain was the last development of the human organism, it is the first in importance. Every cell, tissue, and organ system other than the heart are slowly sacrificed in critical periods such as starvation that the brain might survive. When the brain can no longer survive, death occurs. The brain is the prime instrument in establishing, supplying, and maintaining the needs and stable environment of the trillions of cells. Each cell has yet another organism that thrives within its internal environment, called mitochondria. The brain exists for every cell in the body, and in turn, the brain's welfare is dependent upon the well-being of the cellular system it serves. 6.3. Knowledge, expertise, and resources for healing processes. 6.3.1. Body actions always are right actions. 6.3.2. Intervention of intellect in body affairs. 6.3.3. Building confidence in inherent faculties. 6.3.4. A medical assessment of body wisdom. 6.3.5. Law and order reign within the body. Can anyone doubt, after a study of the countless control mechanisms within the body, after observing what happens with predictable reliability when cuts, broken bones, and other injuries are suffered, that the body is completely self-repairing? Can anyone not see that the body has vast resources, that it is completely self-sufficient, and that it is fully capable of coping with internal exigencies that beset it to the exclusion of all other agencies? Can anyone of average intelligence not see that any intrusion upon the vital domain is grossly wrong, that it obstructs and interferes with processes revealing far more wisdom and expertise than we can ever hope to master? Can anyone doubt that all body action is intelligent, purposeful action? Can anyone doubt that symptoms of sickness evince body action in purifying and healing itself? Can anybody doubt that in conducting disease processes, the body is manifesting wisdom and physiologically correct remedial activities? Can anyone doubt that an organism with the power to develop itself into a superb human being from a fertilized ovum is less than capable of managing its internal affairs? Can any person presume a knowledge of internal needs better than the body itself? It is very unwise, even dangerous, for anyone to presume an ability or knowledge superior to that of the body. Leave the body intelligently alone. 6.3.1. Body actions always are right actions. It has been said in jest that we are our own worst enemies. The facade of a joke often conceals an element of truth. What humans often do relative to their bodies reminds me of a story. Two husky men were going down the street. They observed a huge piano apparently stuck in a doorway with two workmen inside trying to move it. They offered their help and started struggling to get the piano into the house, while the two workmen inside struggled also. After about half an hour of fruitless efforts, one of the workmen inside yelled for a break so they could get their heads together on this thing. Upon convening, one workman commented that he'd never had such great difficulty in getting a piano out of a house before. "Getting it out of the house?" asked one of the volunteers. "We've been trying to help you get it into the house." When we deem our intellect superior to the obvious demands of the body in a crisis, we exhibit gross ignorance. The only way to help the body is to cooperate with it, to meet its needs in accordance with its condition. That is the only wise thing to do. This means leave the body intelligently alone, to do its thing in full confidence that all body action is right action. 6.3.2. Intervention of intellect in body affairs. If you hold your breath or force yourself to breathe in a manner that is contrary to normal breathing, you are interfering in a vital body process. Not many people hold their breaths long nor perform forced breathing, often called deep breathing, such that they underventilate or hyperventilate their bodies and beget hallucinations or akapna. The body is the best arbiter of its needs. It is autonomous and operates from a culminative font of wisdom that we can never hope to emulate. Often the body will make its demands upon us in some gentle manner, such as in thirst, sleepiness, hunger, etc. But when we figure out that wine, beer, or soda pop are just fine as ways to satisfy thirst, we are imposing upon the body a health-sapping burden. The body demanded water, and only water, in thirst. To supply it with anything other than water is a mistake. At some time in our past, the current superstition about diseases began. The present idea about disease is the result of a gradual evolution from the ideas of evil spirits and demons. The people who held these ideas admitted that they were wrong by the fact that they changed their minds and replaced them with new ideas. However, the new ideas have the same roots as the old ideas and are, therefore, equally wrong. The misconception that still prevails in matters of sickness or disease is that the body is being attacked. The misconception further holds that the attacker or attackers must be counterattacked and routed from the body. Under this misconception, many people have been harmed by drugs. Death occurs in some cases. In fact, when physicians go on strike, the death rate usually plummets by 50 to 60%. One of the prime dicta of the hygienic philosophy is non-interference in the body. Each cell of the body possesses more knowledge and expertise than the whole of the human race collectively on the conscious level. Our voodooistic rituals with drugs are based on conjectures about what the body should be doing or what it needs when ill. It bears repeating that sickness is vital body action. It is right action. The body initiates and conducts the disease process to accomplish physiological objectives. To mistake this action as an attack by an invader that must be routed is disastrous in practice. Refrain always from second-guessing the body, what it needs or what should be done. We'll repeat over and over, leave the body intelligently alone. Establish the external conditions of health based on the body's capabilities of the moment, and that's all. That is a simple enough dictum to follow. 6.3.3 Building Confidence in Inherent Faculties. This lesson cannot pinpoint body wisdom any more than have our many researchers and thinkers. We know it's there and we perceive how extensive it is when we explore it. But by and large, most of our population is unaware of their body's tremendous faculties. They violate the laws of their being and then seek help when problems arise. Not only must you build your confidence in the unfailing powers of the organism, but you must establish this confidence in your clients. There are many approaches to accomplishing this. Methods that make a deep impression are to be preferred. Among the educational aids life science is developing are graphic presentations depicting the incredible powers within. When the resources and powers of the body fail to restore health under favorable conditions, then the condition is irredeemable. Life science is the court of last resort for many who have tried everything but healthful living. Many turn too late. They're already over the hill. Everyone can benefit by the employment of healthful practices within the context of their condition. As a professional, you cannot promise miracles, but you can say truthfully that the methods you propose are the only factors that will enable the body to rebuild health. 6.3.4 A medical assessment of body wisdom. Dr. David Rubin, MD, has authored 2 best-selling books. One, Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Nutrition, contains much erroneous guidance, but it also shatters many commercially fostered myths in the field of foods, feeding, and nutrition. The following quote from the book illustrates the body's needs and powers. Look at it this way. A plain old apple contains 191 known chemical compounds, each of which plays an important role in human nutrition. When you eat that apple, over 1,300 chemical reactions occur to break it down into its component molecules. These molecules are then dispatched to exactly the area of the body where they are required. The pectin goes to the large intestine, the vitamin C is sent to the skin, the vitamin A goes to the retinal areas of the eyes, and so on. 191. You don't make it happen because you don't even know it's happening. There are 160,000 edible plants on this earth. You didn't put any of them there, but most of them help keep you alive. Your digestive system was designed by God, not by you, not by IBM, and not by a government agency. It can take almost any animal that walks by or any plant that springs up in an empty field and convert it into brain, bone, heart, muscle, and energy to keep you alive. Even the most arrogant and self-important scientist must admit that a being far wiser than any human must have devised and implemented that uncomprehended nutritional system. So don't think that people who make instant breakfasts or imitation orange juice or yucky white imitation bread have the slightest idea what your body needs. That applies as well to those who turn out vitamin pills and nutritional supplements. Those fumbling human brains cannot improve on the master design that brought you here and allows you to survive from day to day. 6.3.5 Law and order reign within the body. Pick up any book on physiology, nutrition, biology, cytology, biochemistry, anatomy, and related sciences. Each attests to the multitude of activities the body conducts. Each bespeaks the orderliness and precision with which the activities are conducted. Each witnesses the enormous wisdom, the vast know-how and expertise possessed within. Each tells of the multitude of faculties and resources within the body. However, for a person who elects to make a practical application of the world's most needed expertise, a pursuit of esoteric knowledge would be luxurious entertainment. Most of it is meaningless, for we cannot change nature. It does not need to be changed. We can always rely on it. The multitudinous processes and relationships proclaimed the unalterable reign of law and order within. All body wisdom is based soundly upon the immutable physical relationships of matter. Entitative existence depends entirely upon fixed principles and undeviating physical relationships. Bodily survival depends upon taking charge of and utilizing needed natural substances in accord with the invariable laws. The order of intelligence evinced in the mastery of nature's forces dwarfs our intellect beyond our ability to comprehend. The best we can do is bend our knees in awe and acknowledge our inner wisdom and resources as our master. We must make our intellect totally subservient to our bodily wisdom. Our intellects will thrive even more if we learn to cooperate with our inner wisdom. By teaming up with your body intelligence in all matters, you can become a winner in the game of life. You can help others become winners in the game of life too. 6.4. Programming the intellect for exuberant well-being. By now, you are no doubt persuaded that the body is constructed for perfect operations. The body is a perfect instrument within the environment of its adaptation when its needs are correctly furnished. Because intellect often misinterprets body processes and actually contravenes its needs, because cognitive institutionalized errors regard the body and its needs incorrectly, much suffering and disease prevail today. Learn to trust the body implicitly. Learn how to properly supply it and know that it will perform correctly, whether in struggle or great health. Struggle is occasioned when the body is incorrectly supplied or interfered with. Lacing our bodies with toxic fare, miscalled food and drink, is incorrect supply, and the administration of drugs, treatments, and antivital modalities constitute gross interference. From wrong intellectual programming flows errors that undermine and destroy health. The purpose of this course is to present you with ready-made programming you can employ in helping your clients reprogram themselves so that they may enjoy wonderful health. Clients will seek you out because they want to free themselves of nagging problems and suffering. They are not necessarily looking to change their habits or programming. They want to be made well within the context of their status quo. Most are fixed in their habits, programming, and resist changing their ways. Even if they wanted to, most are in situations that do not make breaking habits an easy matter. To break habits, it is wise to take an individual out of the mold in which the habits were forged and indulge and place that person for a while in an environment where only good habits can be followed. Within a directed or controlled environment, all the experiences are usually pleasant, even happy, memorable occasions. Those who are fasting or living within the atmosphere of a health retreat improve themselves, enjoy fellow guests, and enjoy body rest. Frequently, they are in a heady state. Tensions that ordinarily beset them within conventional society are relaxed and often non-existent. Within the context of a euphoric paradise, clients improve rapidly. Their intellects are largely reprogrammed in support of an inner drive to continue the benefits and happiness realized. More healthful living has been inspired in Americans at health retreats than any other single way. The great value in establishing a controlled and ideally directed environment for health seekers is thus evident. Nothing reprograms the mind so quickly or so well as living and doing in rapport with others going in the same direction.